Okay, so what I wanted to do was to show you guys around, and sometimes it might be not that simple, or sometimes you guys might need or want to get more information about your environments, right? So the one thing is when you're in Oracle Cloud, right? You're in OCI, you're inside your autonomous database. Um, then basically what you do here normally, right, would be in the tools section, you will find the Oracle Machine Learning User Administration, right? And this is the right way to go when you want to manage users and create users, right? So if you're on an enterprise environment, normally you will have an administrator go in here, right? And that person is going to log in with an admin, right? Account, right? And then when we log in into that account, right, that's the Oracle Machine Learning User Administration section, right? So I can create a new user here, right? So I can create my weekly user, and then I can call it, it's a weekly user. And then I need to give it an email, right? And then I can give them a password, right? So now I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Weekly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the idea now is that you just created a new user, right? So that's called a weekly user. From here, right, is where you're going to get, with the home button on the top here on the right, you would get to your notebooks login page, right? So usually what happens there is now I go into that button and it says sign in with your Oracle Machine Database user credentials, right? No longer says admin. So we are weekly user, right? And we're weekly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we are able to log in. So now what happens is you have a brand new account, right? You have a brand new account, right? And then you're going to see in the notebooks, for example, I have nothing, right? So I have no new notebooks. What's going to happen is I can start creating a notebook, right, from scratch myself, or there's another place here, which is the templates. So we put a lot of effort on creating basic templates for you guys. So if you go down here to examples, okay, and you click on examples, you're going to see a lot of examples, right? So all of these examples are available to you. Important, remember not to double click the examples, right? Or click on their names, because if you click on their names, you're actually opening the template itself, and that template is going to be read-only. So you're not going to understand what's going on and what's the problem. But the idea is that you're not sharing, right? You are using our own examples that we gave you guys. So if, say you want to take a look at the introduction, right? And then you click on it anywhere but the name, right? Anywhere but the name. You see this blue thing come around, right? So that indicates I selected that. And then I go here and click on create notebook, right? This way, it's going to create a notebook for me. And then I can say weekly user OML for Pi intro, right? And I can do okay. And now that notebook was created for me with the name I have given, but with that content. So I go back to notebooks, and now I can see my weekly user OML4Pi intro, and then I can go in and work with the notebook, right? So right now, then, behind the scenes, we're starting up the engine for you, right? Your notebook engine. And then we're going to load the notebook for you. And then at that point, you can play with that notebook, change it, destroy it. It's no matter, right? This notebook now is yours to do whatever you want. If you do some changes that you find it are very useful for your company, right? For example, you can come here and find out that there are a few things that you tweaked and changed, and now you want to share with other people, right? Then you can do that as well. You can export the notebook, right? So you can export the notebook to your computer, so that JSON file comes back to you, right? So that is a very easy and interesting thing to do. And over here as well, you can create a save as template. Okay. Now, when you save it as template, right, You can say whether it's a personal template, so only I have access to, or it's a shared template. So my colleagues, right, accessing the same PDB in Autonomous Database, right, they will have access to that too, right? And I want to share the love with them, right? Now, one interesting thing though that we get many times in questions, and we had some questions this week about was how do I get my data in, right? How do I push my data to this? So if you have gone to the autonomous database, right, lately, you have seen that we actually changed the name. This guy used to be called SQL Developer Web, right? And now it's called Database Actions. Now, it is an important thing because what happens is when we created the weekly user, it still doesn't have access to a SQL Dev on its own user, okay? So for example, from here, I can click on Open Database Actions, right? So I will go here and depending on the user, right? In my case, I know that I need to enter admin and then I got to provide the right password for that, right? What happens now is it allows me to come in, right, to this environment or to this new database actions environment. And right here, when you get in, you're going to see that we have a lot of different things that we can do, right? Data tools and administration and things like that. What we're interested on is data load. But what happens is if I try to load data, right, through this, I am the admin right now, right? So what I actually want to do is I want to give access to all of these tools to the weekly user, right? So you would have to talk to administrator, right? In a corporate environment where the administrator then has this option. He goes into here and he sees weekly user, and now he can actually enable REST, okay? So you can enable REST and enable graph as well from here, right? But it's important to enable REST because with that, when you REST enable the user, right? Now you get a link for yourself, which means this link now has the OML user in the name. So if I click on this thing, you see it on the top here, right, on my window, it says weekly user, right? So now I can go here as the weekly user, right? I can log in as the weekly user myself, and I can have access to those different tools, right? So for example, in SQL, right? Now I would go to my SQL Dev Web, and then you can see, for example, data loading, right? So immediately here, right, in that portion of that, right, when I see the weekly user is here, it doesn't have any tables yet, right? And I have information that I could basically drag and drop something to that user. So for example, if we take access to some Iris data set, right? So an Iris CSV file, right? I'll pull it out of the screen, but I'll pull that back in. I'll drag and drop over here, right? So I drop the table there, and there you go. So it says this is the file. These are the records, right, that I have there, and this is the settings. So in the settings, I don't have column names, so I uncheck that, right? And now I have the column names without, right? Column 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then you can do next, and then you can define these columns, right? And I know for a fact that these are numbers. So to me, these are numbers. And then the last one is a character, right? And then you can play with this, and the idea is that you're gonna then it's gonna create the code for you, and hopefully, if it's successful, you're gonna get your table right there, right? So you get your table now on the left hand side, right? So that table you can do select star from Iris over here, right? And then this guy should give me the result, right? Then so that I can see that that table running in SQL, right? So I got that, and I did not rename the columns. Remember that? I just randomly just didn't want to put time on that, but that's a data set. That's a CSV file that was on my laptop, right? And if I go back to my notebooks here now, and I create a notebook from scratch, right? So I can say new test, right? So in my new test here, I would be able to say, okay, now I can access that data, because before I did not have any data there, right, to play with. I could be running those notebooks that create data from scratch, but I could easily do now Python here, right? And then I can do import OML, and I can say iris, right, equals oml.sync, right, table equals iris. And hopefully that guy works okay. And if that guy works okay, then this guy is now an OML frame, right? Remember, that's a pandas data frame transparently mapped into an Oracle database table. And I can do the zshow iris PD right here. And there you go. So you got now your data and your table, and you're looking at it, and you are able to do basic things and charts and stuff like that, that all the things that you can do easily on the notebooks, right, themselves. So that was just what I wanted to show you guys real quick. There's another component as well that you can do when you have this ability, right? When you are in the database actions section, you got the SQL. So you got the SQL worksheet and things like that. But there's also other places that you can go. So if you click on database actions by themselves, there is a capability to loading data from cloud, right? So you can click what you want to do with the data. I want to load data. Where is your data, right? You can do local file. My data is in a database, on a remote database, or my data is in the cloud storage, right? And then you can explore, inspect the data, right? And then select your, configure your cloud locations, right? So if you click on that, you can add a cloud storage, right? So at that point, you can give it a name, a description, what kind of cloud store, right? So it's an Amazon S3, right? Microsoft Azure, is an Oracle, right? Object storage, it's a Google, it's a Swift compatible storage. And then you put the URI here, and you put the credential, and then you can test the connectivity to that. And then you can create your own connection. When you create your connection, then you're able to actually access CSV files, XLS files, and the files that are stored on your object storage. And you can load them into the autonomous database as tables. So when you do that, the same effect is going to happen as well, right? You're going to see them available here for you to play with the OML4Py notebooks. So hopefully that makes sense. I wanted just to give you this quick highlight. We have some 10 minutes, and I know we've been answering several questions. How are we on the questions, Mark? Anything we want to highlight, or maybe you want to do a quick demo? Maybe Sherry want to show something related to questions?
Okay. We've had a good number of questions so far. We've been addressing them. I think, let's take a look here. One question on federated users is whether or not they can leverage the IDCS capabilities for identity management, and we're going to look into that a little bit more in more detail, but we suspect that the OML users are really currently managed separately through the OML interface, and so we'll get back to you on that one.
Correct. Yeah, and we are, I mean, and we intend to actually that's an intention, right? That's not written in stone, but it's an intention that we have, which is to add an OML user, all of the settings right over here. So that to concentrate, or to let's say put all the administration of users together into the database users, so that it's something easier, right? Today we have that machine learning user administration in a separate place, but yeah, we want to make sure that things are made simple.
Yeah. There was another request for can we convert a Zeppelin notebook to a Jupyter notebook? And in part, the idea is that how can we view a Zeppelin notebook offline? And Sherry replied with a number of suggestions for that, that you could export the notebook to a JSON format from the notebook interface, or in Firefox install the Fireshot extension and export the notebook to a PDF. So Sherry had a number of examples, so you can reach out to her directly if you'd like more information on that.
Right. Also, a question that came in: will we have an action on database actions to go into the OML UI directly? Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? I think that's one of the ideas is to have another option here, just because we have access to all the database tools, right? All the autonomous tools here. So I think it makes sense at some point to get something from here that you can just click and go to machine learning, and also the same thing for graph, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that's again on in plans. We don't have yet a date for you on that.
Yeah. Another great question is, which user interface will be available for on-premises OML for Pi? And the key thing is, now that we're released on autonomous database, we will be providing the client library that users can incorporate into whatever Python client environment that they want, whether it be generic Zeppelin or Jupyter, or also PyCharm type interface, a native Python engine, and so you can be able to use whatever you want, because it is just a Python package that connects to the database at that point.
Yeah, and the other question here I see is OML part of the always free resources? Yes, that's for sure. So if you have an always free account, yes, OML is there. OML is available for you. You have the same templates, the same everything. The only difference is going to be definitely performance, right, Mark? And at the end of the day, OML always free, I believe, is one node CPU, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So you probably will want to, well, it's going to run. It's just going to take more time if you're running large data sets or large volumes of data. But yes, I mean, we have it available. It's going to be running there. And you're going to also have access to OML services and AutoML UI as well, right? That's the intention is to have all of those things available.
Okay. So I think we're all caught up with Q&A at the moment. We have another one that just came in. Do the latest 19C patches provide the OML for Pi /SQL functionality in an on-premises database? So OML for Pi is not released on-premises yet. That will be coming first with the database 21C. And that's coming soon. That's the best I can say on that from a date standpoint. And afterwards, we'll be providing the packages for installation with 19C database.
Excellent. Okay, we still have 6 minutes. If there are no more questions, I think we can adjourn and then connect with you guys next week. And feel free to ask questions. Also, you will find that in the Ask Tom interface, you can actually ask questions as well up front. And we see those questions. So again, feel free to connect with us through there. And thank you for joining. And talk to you next week. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sherry. Thanks a lot, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.